What is new in the realm of innovation right now as far as the pilot brewery that you're in charge of, Veronica?
So, I mean, our biggest thing is going into modified theory, a new brand under Deschutes Brewery, as a malt beverage that brings something totally different to the table. That space between our last generation or first generation FMBs and what's happening in craft cocktails. So bringing in mixology, culinary inspired flavors into something, into a ready to drink malt beverage. So full flavored, natural ingredients, and all the things that we as craft brewers bring to brewing, we're bringing into this malt beverage, like knowing where ingredients come from, layering in flavors. Obviously the alcohol is coming from malt, and then just creating a different experience, like with cocktails, and whether it's versatile, like you can drink it alone, drinking it over ice, mixing it with your favorite spirit. So kind of like mixing up how we think of people experiencing a malt beverage.
Were you experienced or a fan of these sort of other craft beverage drinks that are outside of beer?
I honestly don't think there are craft malt beverages out there. There are FMBs out there. There are those, like, again, first generation malt beverages, and yeah, I personally didn't reach for them. So I think it was kind of an exciting thing to think that we could bring our own spin to what's happening in a category that really hasn't innovated for like 20 years. So thinking of, like, again, our process as craft brewers, and bringing that to the table, and like there's that space on that jump between what's happening in malt beverage and craft cocktails, and seeing that like people can add some spirit to this malt beverage and like elevate it and customize it to how they want to do that at home.
What would you say to some of the critics who would say it's like diluting the industry or taking away from the industry?
That's hard, I guess, a hard question. I would say that we're doing it in our way, which again goes to like, Benny, like when it comes to like our thought process on how we reach for like ingredient pairing, and we formulated this in the same way we did all our beers. I mean, you were part of this. Like, we were tasting it and saying, no, it needs more of this. No, it needs less of this. All of that is the same.
Yeah.
We're just reaching for a wider audience, and that audience has told us that they want something better. They want something with natural ingredients. They want something with less sugar. So why wouldn't we give them that? Mm-hmm. So it's like the customer has asked for it. So we're there to provide something better, I guess.
What makes modified theory different?
The main thing is you're here asking me how it's made, and we can tell you, like it's fermented. The alcohol comes from malted barley. We're adding real ingredients. We're adding fruits, and depending on the recipe, we're adding fruits, peels, all that stuff, and building up that flavor the way we do our beers. And what's out there on the market, you can't go to the tasting room and like connect with the brewer and like talk to them about like how it's made, and there isn't that craft connection. And overall, the ingredients, we're not putting preservatives in there. We're not back sweetening with a bunch of sugar. So I think there's a lot of points of difference that our influence as craft brewers bring to the table.
Yeah, through this process, I feel like we're staying true to the way we approach every other thing that we've ever done, and that to me has really set it apart from other things that we see out in the marketplace.
How does your job factor into these new trends, Ben?
Almost none whatsoever. At least, like, I don't know. I feel
disagree. You bring a lot of, like, with our small batch beers, that's where we build flavor ideas and all that. Come on.
Yeah, no, I thought we were talking more like modified theory.
Well, I was talking about modified theory, but I did want to move into more of the barrel-aged beers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if that's more your range, I mean, what's new in barrel-aged beers, or like how is that category progressing? What's the future of it?
I mean, what we've been super excited about recently is just kind of fruit forward, because that's something that we haven't really done a lot of up until recently. I'd say what's been exciting that I've seen is like we just judged a beer at GABF that really leaned on like a Brazilian wood variety. God, I can't remember. I'll never pronounce it the right way, but to me that was really
like
cool.
Maduro or something.
No, it wasn't Maduro. It was it began with an A.
Okay.
But that was really exciting for me. Is that, like, innovation, no matter what realm you're focused on, is always there, and everybody's looking for something exciting to challenge themselves, but also to stand apart in the marketplace. And so, like, yeah, that totally applies to barrel aging. Everybody's, I feel like, always trying to learn more about their process and how can they set themselves apart with, like, what types of microbes they're using, or like how they're using them.
Veronica, does the pilot brewing and the other brewing projects of Deschutes affect your creation of the modified theory and other possible innovations you're working on?
I mean, where I get a lot of inspiration is honestly not within the craft beer space. I look a lot to food and cocktails and those sorts of chocolates. I mean, just other areas where people are combining flavor. That filters into what will come with modified theory. That will filter into whatever, like, beer project we have. Will filter into, like, some small batch stuff. Like, for small batch, we allow people to just be creative, and I might have, like, one thing or two to add or not. But honestly, I think if you just look within craft beer, all you're doing is just iterating on what's out there. And if you look beyond that, then you're bringing in other inspiration. Like, maybe it might be even like design. It might be like how someone set up their house, and it just might frame, how you think of setting up a recipe, in the future.
When you're developing, what's the name of the low-calorie beer? Wowza?
Wowza.
Yeah. When you were developing that, I mean, did you have something you were reaching for on that specifically?
That was one of those things where, sometimes you kind of like have people ask you, like your customers say, hey, why don't you guys make this or that sort of thing. That certainly didn't happen with Wowza. With Wowza, we were taking, like, what's happening just in, what are movements that are happening just with people, And so one of those movements are people are overall becoming a little bit more health conscious. So how do we take that nugget of information and inform our beers, right? So with Wowza, like, all of us are kind of learning a little bit more about making hazy beers and how to hop, and, like, you guys have been trialing things like the pubs and that sort of thing on how to get less bitterness, more flavor. So that's very exciting. So how do you take that, what brewers are excited about, and then extend it to what's moving people, like a bigger reach of people, and take something like, okay, people are worried about calories, some people are worried about carbs, that sort of thing. How do we take what's exciting us in making hazy beers and make it appeal to a wider audience?
And you mentioned earlier about using enzymes to lower the calories. Were brute IPAs inspiration for that? And how do the enzymes How does that work to lower the calories and make it easier to brew a low-calorie, flavorful beer?
Yeah, I mean, Benny, you've done some brew IPAs. Like, I think it certainly informed us.
I'd say ultimately the inspiration was like Bud Light. Like if you look like super far back, but at least for the enzyme piece. But
we didn't get there until brew IPAs.
No, we didn't get there until
like
brew.
As craft brewers, we didn't get there until brew IPAs almost allowed
And that was like
us.
exactly
It allowed us to go that direction.
Yep.
And because we felt validated amongst the craft beer community on, okay, if we want to get a bone
This
dry
is cool.
beer, this
Yeah,
is cool.
it's not like it's kind of seen as
like a puzzle.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle that we're going to solve, and we did that through the brew IPAs, and by adding that amyloglucosidase enzyme, it reduces everything to make it very, very dry. You have to work with like the hop bill you have to not add a ton of bitterness and keep it balanced.
Well, in this one especially, where body is a factor, and how are you gonna make that stick around? And no, I remember when we first started trying to talk about like how are we gonna tackle this project, and it was exciting because it's like the things that brewers love to wrestle with is like how are we gonna craft this recipe to try to achieve this, and
I'd say Brute's got us like a couple stepping stones towards, okay, now we've noticed that with brew IPAs the calories are pretty low.
Yeah.
Because you're drying it out.
We can use
do that
something
same
else.
Process.
For sure, yeah.
And then like, wow, with the hazy beer, then you're like, okay, we took those learnings, and then how do we build it up from there?
So do you think brew IPAs are here to stay, or are they just a stepping stone of innovation?
No, Brew's IPAs
Not here to stay.
Done. They're so done. I just think it was a really fun learning process.
Well, yeah,
it's a challenge for all of us,
And to me, it's kind of it's a sign of the times, right? Like, okay, let's move on and do something else.
Totally.
Ben, what's the future of barrel-aged and fruit beers? I mean, is there something you're looking to, or as far as new trends, styles, or simply ways to create new flavors or make what you're doing, just better?
I think ours is what we've been focused on most often these days is just like learning our process and just understanding, I feel like in that side of things, there's so much more unpredictability with how things are going to mature, and so like figuring out the microorganisms that we like and like what parts of a process bear fruit for us, and like how do we replicate that, and like how do we understand a little bit more about that. And just look into local ingredients and I guess different styles, and figure out how do we meld all these things together. And the timepiece is always interesting.
Yeah, fruit, and then how do you tackle like bottle conditioning on top of like the fruit re-fermentation and all that,
Yeah, it's a longer overall maturation, but I'd say like the first thing that comes to mind is like just understanding our microorganisms and how to get the best results out of them.
What do you think about the future of beer and the future of the beer industry, Veronica?
Big question, Ezra. Gosh, I think we think about it every single day as regional craft brewers, especially. I mean, I think we think of the impact of what it means to be a regional craft brewery on like remaining leaders in innovation and like new processes, but then looking and also acknowledging that a lot of small breweries are doing a lot of cool things, and we need to do both. We need to ensure our quality and our all those things are perfect, but we also need to be fast and nimble, and we also need to still go into our curiosities, and that's where the core of what craft beer what are that creative like energy, like that still needs to remain. But I think we also need to have a wider reach. We can't just think we can make what we want to make and that's enough. We need to look at like people overall and say, what can we make that can make people happy, not just craft brewing like fans. I think that's kind of the change of us like thinking of ourselves as like a beverage company, not just a craft beer company, and that we can still bring all the goodness that comes with craft beer, the like community aspect, the like connection to our people, connection to our ingredients, connection to our process. That must remain, but like maybe just reaching a wider audience.